Okay, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. Um, we're going to do a round of introductions as we wait for Rick to join. So I will go ahead and start, and then I'll call on folks. My name is Claire Ireland. I currently serve as the administrator for the State Natural Resource Conservation Council. Thank you everyone for joining today. Richard.
Yes, I'm a district, excuse me. I got to remember what position I'm in here. I'm the supervisor for Franklin County District Board. I'm a retired, semi-retired dairy farmer, and I live here up by the Canadian border in Highgate.
Thank you, Richard. Bill.
Bill Manor. I'm currently chair of the Board of Supervisors for Outaquechee and the alternate for council for Southeast Region.
Thank you, Bill. Linda.
Who am I? I'm Linda Course. I'm the Windham County Conservation District, the Southeast rep to supervisory rep to this board, and president of VACD, and yeah, lots of other things. But here today is the Southeast rep.
Thank you, Linda. Emily.
Hello, Emily Newmer. I'm the Agriculture Programs Manager with VACD and Council. Good to see everyone.
Good to see you, Emily. Nina.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nina Gage, Vermont Agency of Ag Food Markets, Assistant Director for the Division of Water Quality, and I am a representative to Council and the Chair of our Secretary of Agriculture, Anson Tebbets.
Thanks, Nina. Thanks you for joining today. Sorry to miss you seeing you in person. Katie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Langhorst. I'm an Eco-AmeriCorps member with the ACD this year.
Thanks. I'm going to turn to the folks in the room. Rick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late. I was with the Winooski District as you are all convening. So anyway, here I am. I'm a supervisor with the Winooski District. I live in East Montpelier. I'm the Central Supervisory Union rep to Council and always looking for a co-chair to Council.
Thanks, Rick.
Lena.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lena Smith, and I'm the Grants and Finance Manager for VACD and NRCC.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Allie Lewis. I'm the coordinator with the Vermont Ag Water Quality Partnership.
Is it morning? Oh, it is afternoon. Good afternoon. Jill Arauchi, Vermont Association of Conservation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Travis Thomason, State Conservationist for NRCS Vermont. Good to be here.
I'm Julia King, the Communications Manager for VACD and Council, and I'll be monitoring the chat for those of you who are on time.
Thank you. Well, Rick, we haven't officially called the meeting to order yet, but I do believe we have a quorum. We have, for our agency partners, we
Claire?
have Nina here. Yes.
Sorry, Willie didn't get a chance to introduce himself.
Oh my gosh, Willie. Please introduce yourself. I'm sorry, I was saving you for last since you're our new member here. Thank you, Linda, for reminding me. Willie, please.
Thank you. I'm Willie Nickerson. I'm the chair of the Board of Supervisors in Caledonia County, and I'm the Northeast Kingdom Union rep to Council.
Thank you, Willie. I really appreciate you being here. So our representatives right now, we do have Nina Gage is a voting member from the Agency of Agriculture. We have the Northeast represented Willie Nickerson. We do have Southeast represented by both Linda Course and Bill Manor, the alternate. Central Supervisory Union being represented by Rick Hopkins. And have I missed anyone?
No,
Richard.
Northwest.
Richard.
Yes.
With Northwest. Okay. So with that, I believe we have a quorum, and
So that's 4 + 1 and 5.
yes.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Season's greetings. So let's jump right into it then. First item would be to review and approve the June meeting minutes. June 17th. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I can second that.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Richard. Further discussion? I'd just like to acknowledge the many hands that went into preparing these minutes, the many hands, the equal number of ears to take it all down. So thank you to all that were involved with that and making a good reflection of our June 17th meeting. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. The meeting minutes are approved. On to the next, grant updates.
Thanks, Rick. I sent this out, part of the meeting materials ahead of time, but we do have a RFP that we'd like to release today as possible or as soon as possible. This is a request for proposals from districts for one-time funds. Last year, the legislature allocated $100,000 to us in one-time funding with the understanding that we would allocate that to districts to for priority needs, one-time priority needs. So we're at the point where we're ready to put out this request for proposals. I can share my screen to just do a quick outline of what we're thinking with this. But this does fall under our core services agreement, which is held through the agency agriculture. And so this would supplement the pre-existing core services funding that districts already receive. Here we are. Okay. So this funding doesn't have much by way of guidance attached to it. And so we were thinking that this would be a good opportunity to help districts to make sure that districts are meeting various legal responsibilities, particularly in relation to their administration. The big thing on our radar is a change to open meeting law that will require hybrid meetings in some instances. And so we want to make sure every district is prepared to do audiovisual, to do Zoom meetings or Teams meetings. And so to that end, we have some suggested use of one-time funds, things like meeting owls, laptops, projectors. Also, there's some updates to the types of things that need to be hosted after meetings, which it would be a recording of the meeting hosted to the website. We still have not put out guidance to districts about this, in part because we have a question about how the law relates to conservation districts specifically. And that's sitting with the Secretary of State's office right now. It's under review. We don't want to hold up the RFA by waiting on that answer. So essentially, this is going to be a little open-ended for districts. And this list that I'm showing here right now is a suggested use of funds. It's not required. But essentially, we want to make sure districts have access to these kinds of things that help facilitate public meetings. Other potential use of fundings would be to help with board development. If districts have ideas about ways that they can do more outreach or professional training for supervisors, shoring up district financial management in terms of how they're doing bookkeeping, accessibility and DEI, if districts want to do an accessibility review of their website, or translate any key materials. In terms of operations, there's some types of expense that are always a little bit difficult to fund, just general, and we rely on general overhead. So things like hand tools, power equipment, personal protective equipment, office furniture, et cetera. And then administration potentially could use these funds for policy review or development, new software, and then under outreach and education, potentially some, website work or outreach development materials. So these are just general ideas that we would put out to districts in soliciting proposals under this funding source. And the idea would be a very quick turnaround, that we would put out this call for applications and ideally have some determinations made by the next finance committee meeting in January, so that districts can start spending this money. That's the overview. And I guess I want to see if there's any questions from the board. Linda?
Yeah, I just am wondering if it couldn't come up with, and I don't know that this would happen, but any new thoughts about what they might need? Is there any way that they could put in a proposal for items that they've already purchased, as long as those came out of like their own district funds, not already paid for by some other grant, if you follow my question?
So this was asked by a district manager at our most recent district manager meeting, and my response then is that ideally these would be for new purchases going forward. Normally, the way our grants work is that spending approval essentially happens from the point we sign the agreement going forward. That said, if there was a strong push for this, we would have to negotiate that and I think ask our agency partner for some guidance. So Nina, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, but I think ideally this would be for new purchases.
I had one question, which was, is Emily Newmer, the Ag Programs Manager, going to be a part of the review? I just want to ensure there's no duplication with other agency of Ag, specifically Ag CWIP funding, because the grants and budgets and those are just really in depth and cover some similar items. So you nodded yes, Claire. I'm taking that as yes, Emily will be involved. And then in terms of pre-award costs, my recommendation is if NRCC would like to offer pre-award costs, I just wouldn't go to anything prior to July 1st, 2024, because that was the appropriation timeframe for these funds.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm guessing most districts could come up with some new ideas, but I just wanted to ask.
Thanks, Linda. And we are planning to have a webinar to discuss this with district managers. So if we hear a strong push for that kind of reimbursement, we would, I think, have to consider that at that point and make a determination. But yeah, ideally this would be for new and additional expenditures. I think, Nina, your point about not duplicating with pre-existing core services funding and pre-existing Ag CWIP funding is very good, because we do have multiple sources of funding for some of these items, but not all districts take advantage of those or fully budget. Plus, we've had a lot of district staff turnover and growth in the past year. So this is sort of an additional opportunity for people who have not budgeted for these items before. So yes, and yes, we'll make sure Emily is able to do a review of all of this.
Claire?
Yeah.
Has this info already been sent out to the DMs? Because we're talking only 3 weeks. And we'll
We
be
discussed.
reviewing this.
Yes, we discussed this with district managers at a district manager meeting. Almost, it wasn't the last one, so it would have been about 2 weeks ago. So districts have had 2 weeks to think about this, and I have gotten questions from people informally ahead of time. So I know that this is a really quick turnaround. We're hoping that these can be quick and easy items that won't require a lot of budgeting or rebudgeting. But we will, yeah, so I guess the short answer is districts have already been informed about 2 weeks ago.
Are applications being accepted already, or is there a date to start?
No, we haven't put out the formal RFA yet, so I have it dated today. I wanted to discuss this with council, and assuming we get your approval, I would put it out as soon as possible after the meeting, so that districts could then develop a proposal. My proposed application due date is January 13th. It's a very quick turnaround, and it's over the holidays. We may need to push that back, just I guess flagging that if districts are really struggling to get proposals in. But I essentially want to get the ball rolling, since I know we have a short time span to spend these funds. I guess that's another thing to flag, is that we would want all money under this award to be spent by the end of the fiscal year, June 30th.
Thank you.
Question, did any of the DMs say anything about buying iPads for mobile tools at all? Do you know?
I haven't heard that specifically.
Okay. Because I know you and I had this conversation with one of them. We did buy some iPads for districts to use for mobile tools and conservation planning process. I just don't know. I mean, we purchased those. I just don't know if that question comes up,
Mhm.
right? Let me know and we can certainly work through that process if we can put them on our system and then go from there.
Okay.
Just FYI.
We've gotten the request in when we solicited information for our 2026 appropriations request,
Mhm.
laptops, but not specifically mobile tools
Yeah.
for new staff.
If that does come up, let me know and we can certainly work through that
Mhm.
process if that's something, because they are great tools. It's great for conservation planning. I just don't know if a partner can buy their own device and put it on the system.
Yeah.
We've gone through that before, so.
The latest was no, but it could change. Yeah. Linda, there was a really interesting idea came up in the recent DM meeting. What was it? Was it for BT Digger advertising? Is that what it was? To get people,
Oh,
Front Porch Forum advertising, to get people to a local work group meeting, to a public meeting. And that particular district, had how many? It was 70 or 80 people attend their meeting. It was something like really high number.
Wow.
So that was very interesting idea that came up.
are there any other questions?
Claire, maybe you said it. I was just still settling into my seat, but the finance committee looked at this,
Yes.
right? And yeah, we
Yes.
approved it when we met, I think on December 11th.
Yes.
So that's why we're bringing it to the board now. So
Yes. Yes, thanks, Rick. The Finance Committee has approved this as an RFA and typically does review all of our RFAs. Linda?
Yeah, just a probably fairly normal question. If you get more requests than the funds would cover. Any thoughts as to how that gets reviewed or determined? Would it be proportional or so much per district or?
That's a good question. So this, I think we've had discussions with council before about how to appropriate one-time or core services funding. And to date, the decision has been to apportion core services funding equally among districts until we get enough to cover one FTE per district. This source of funding would be a sort of a step in the direction of awarding funds based on need and priority, because that's what we discussed with the legislature. I think what we've discussed in terms of prioritization has been essentially, does this expense or does this proposal help the district meet a legal requirement? I think that's the most basic question and prioritization metric. Beyond that, it's a little bit more mushy. And I think what we would be doing is bringing this to the Finance Committee to discuss recommended priorities. I don't have a full matrix beyond the question of whether or not it helps the district meet a legal requirement. So I'm happy to discuss ideas for that, but I think yeah, I think it would be what we generally look at is sort of cost effectiveness and reasonableness and how much the district it would impact district operations, how much of a need it is for the district. I know that's a little squishy, but welcome other thoughts. Nina?
Yeah, I'll just add, Claire, something that we usually take into account with organizational development funding is, future impact of the funding, right? So specifically being one-time funding, is this going to continue to provide a benefit for the organization for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? as a potential additional ranking component. But if it's going to depend on the number of requests that you get and the level of request and whether you need to provide a ranking process to any extent at all. But that would be something I would recommend to consider.
Thanks, Dina. Willie?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it, and it seems like the only part on the suggested application template is that question about whether this would meet a legal requirement. So it almost seems like if there was going to be a ranking, it'd really be on the district managers to kind of divine what the ranking system is and ensure that they put that into the description and the comments. Otherwise, we would just be assuming how it might affect each individual district. So it seems like, if there is going to be a ranking or like a thought about what other factors might influence the decision making on who gets money and how much, some kind of memo that describes what those factors are to give the applicants a chance to address them would be useful.
Thank you. Yes. Normally we do try to be very transparent about that up front. I will say we've developed this very quickly in the hopes of getting money out the door very quickly. So I think what I could do is add a section to this budget template that would, I guess, ask that question a little more directly about how much of an impact this would have on district operations. I don't know how to quantify that exactly, but maybe it would prompt district managers to speak to that question more directly about both the level of impact and the sustainability of that impact to address Nina's point. So I could certainly add a line on this page to ask that directly.
If yes, how so?
Essentially. Yeah. Richard?
I also think that the deadline should be held firm. If you come in 2 weeks later asking for something, we're sorry. We gave you a deadline. You didn't meet it. We got to buck up here and pull our pants up and be big people and follow things correctly.
I appreciate that, Richard, and it certainly makes things easier on my end. That said, I'm aware that we're asking for this application over the holidays. So I'm
Well, I could see a little leniency, but you start out by saying this is the deadline, and then, oh, okay, we'll reconsider. But you start out with having a deadline.
One thing we may, and this is sort of the question of whether or not we're going to get requests that exceed the $100,000 amount. If we don't, and if we end up with a balance, we might do a second round of RFA, like just.
Okay, I can understand that.
Yeah, yeah. Willie.
Thanks. Yeah, that actually, Richard, made me think of a question. What is the deadline for spending this money? Usually the legislature would say like spend it in a year or 2 years.
This is just, it needs to be spent this fiscal year, so by June 30th.
Good point.
And normally we would have had this out much earlier, and I apologize. This sort of fell off the radar while I was on maternity leave. So we're trying to get this out as quickly as possible after circling back to it. So it's not ideal, and we've already talked to district managers who have pointed out that it's not ideal. We're just trying to sort of make the most of what we've been given at this point. But yeah, June 30th is the deadline.
It doesn't seem to me that, this isn't like trying to buy a vehicle or something. These items, I'm guessing, wouldn't be that cumbersome to, get hold of and put in motion. So, and if you met with the district managers and gave them some idea of what was going on 2 weeks ago, I appreciate the holidays. We're all trying to give a break to all of us for those, but it seems like this should be doable, but that's easy for me to say. Corey might shoot me for saying that, but
I think what we discussed with the DMs is, you know, a lot of this is very easy, but there are some types of requests that may be that may take longer. Like, for example, we did put you know, help with an audit. And what I mean by that is sort of a more in-depth audit than districts already have. So this would be really doing a lot of testing about their internal controls and things like that. That would probably be a process that takes a little longer, though I think it is still doable. But that might be a stretch for a district to do that kind of contracted work in the timeline. But something like, you know, a drone purchase or going out and stocking up on personal protective equipment, that should be relatively straightforward. That's what we're hoping. We're hoping to get those relatively straightforward needs taken care of.
Just don't fly your drone over Montpelier right now.
Or in
Or
New
New
Jersey.
Jersey.
We'll put out a word of caution. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I did the math a couple of days ago, so the figure may not be all that fresh. But if every district applies, then every district would receive a maximum of what, $7,200?
That would be if we divided it equally. Yeah.
Right. So
And that is something we can put out to districts, but again, the goal with this is to prioritize needs and meeting legal requirements. So it would, you know, might not shake out equally.
correct.
Yeah.
You said it really nicely in a meeting, Claire. You know, there's some districts that are further ahead than others in terms of being prepared for these kinds of meetings or have already been more active in some of these requirements. And so
Sure.
we're also want to support the districts that need a little catch-up time, basically.
Yeah.
In earlier developmental stages.
Yeah. That's right. So I think that's all I have.
Yeah, unless there are any other questions, comments, concerns, I'd entertain a motion from council voting members to approve the RFA explained by Claire. I think we made Claire committed to making a couple of adjustments.
Yes, so I guess the motion would be to approve it with the addition of 2 lines on the budget request sheet to solicit information about the impact to district operations and the sustainability.
Yeah. And if this request helps the district meet any legal requirement, if the answer to that was yes, then how? Specify or clarify how?
Yes, I can add that as well. So those 3 additions.
So moved.
Motion to approve the RFA as amended. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Richard. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Hi.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, I might have to sorry, I always forget when I should or shouldn't recuse. I should probably recuse from this vote because the funding is contained in a grant in which I'm the grant manager. Sorry.
Thank you, Nina. Noted.
But if you hadn't been in that position, we would record you as a yes, approve. Okay. All right. Well, we'll let the record reflect that we did have a quorum for the meeting, but there was a vote taken and it passed unanimously with 1 abstention.
With 1 abstention. And I just want to note and pause that we've had a couple more people join. So if we want to do some introductions, okay. Kate, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I'm Kate. I'm a supervisor at the White River NRCD, and I'm the alternate to this board for the I guess you would say the joint districts of White River and Winooski. And I am meeting with you from Albuquerque. I just drove down from Santa Fe, so it's a little bit late getting here. My apologies.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you joining while traveling. I
Good
hope you're
effort.
enjoying some warm weather down there.
Nice and warm and sunny and dry.
Wonderful. All right, Jess, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, Jess Miller, Grants and Finance Manager for VACD.
Thank you. And we did introductions earlier. This is Willie's first meeting. He's representing the Northeast. So I think we can move on.
Excellent. All right, well, thank you for joining us, wherever you may be. And so the next item on the agenda is statute and administrative updates.
So Rick, I think I put you down for the first item, which is a proposal to create a statute committee within council.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll take this, and maybe Jill and Claire and others can jump in as they see fit. But for those of you at the meeting today, you may recall that the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts, not too long ago, it seems longer than it was, created several subcommittees, one of which was the VACD Governance Subcommittee. And at the time, the Governance Subcommittee was really looking at trying to spearhead identifying recommended changes to statute that affect the conservation districts and council. Since the time that the Governance Committee was created, the Governance Committee also took on, shall we say, looking at the bylaws that affect VACD. And so it became clearer that the Governance Committee under VACD was really not equipped to sort of take on those two universal things. And so at the VACD annual meeting last month in Fairleigh, the VACD board accepted the recommendation from the Governance Committee for the Governance Committee to basically do away with, give up, defer the examination of statute back to council. So here we are today, bringing to all of you your attention for the idea to create a subcommittee under council that would be looking specifically at understanding the existing statutes and making recommendations to council for any changes going forward in the event the legislature, examines statutes or asks us for, if we lived in a perfect world, what changes we could recommend. So that was simply what we're trying to do here, was to, shift that examination of statute from VACD over to council, with as many supervisory union reps, alternates, district supervisors, if they're not involved with council, or associate supervisors that want to get involved with this effort. So we've made some progress, thanks to Claire, and a number of questions that have been put out there to different state agencies, the Vermont Attorney General. Those questions are in various stages of being answered. But in the meantime, what we're here today is to talk further about that and gauge any interest. And is that a hand?
Yes.
Nina? Oh.
Yeah, I just want to kick it off. I feel inclined to say yes, the Agency of Ag would like to participate if a committee is brought together. The one sort of I want to make sure all the board members are clear on this fact. Because NRCC is a state agency, there are limitations to NRCC's ability to lobby. Now, what that means is, and I don't know off the top of my head exactly how this would work for council, but any proposed revisions would have to take the form of an administratively, basically a bill or edits that are approved by the governor and the administration. So just to give an example, the Agency of Agriculture has a call for potential, we call it housekeeping changes to statute that happens typically really early, like July. And then it gets reviewed by the governor's office and they give the final say, yay or nay, whether the proposed changes could take place or not. So the agency itself does not have sole authority to bring proposed changes to the legislature directly. They have to be essentially blessed by the governor's office. So I just want to make sure that Rick, this committee that comes together is clear on that additional process, right? The benefit of VACD is that VACD can lobby. They're a nonprofit organization. They're outside of the state structure or the administrative branch. So anything under the administrative branch, which includes council, would have to go through the governor's office in one way or another. And I don't know exactly what that process would look like. Claire's nodding because she's like, yes, the complexity of NRCC. So I just wanted to state that.
And I'm happy to talk more about the complexity of NRCC in the next agenda item. We've run into this sort of time and again. But I think just to add to what Rick was saying, what would be beneficial from my perspective is just having a group of supervisors and other reps who can be consulted on some of these statute questions. There are sort of two buckets of question in my mind. One is sort of the immediate administrative and operational questions, which I'll be addressing in just a second. But then there's this also second bucket, which is very big, about sort of visioning more generally the mission, the purpose, the overall structure of council. And so I've been focusing on this first bucket, which is sort of immediate operational questions and needs. But it would be helpful going forward to have this group who's able to work together to provide guidance on that effort, as well as to start doing this visioning work. And through council, Nina, I appreciate your comment about that needing to go to the governor's office. I think another part to make everybody aware of is that all council meetings are subject to open meeting law. So as we're discussing this, this work would be sort of in the public domain, the conversations we would have, which, you know, that's just to say that there may still be a space for VACD to engage on these topics and for the VACD board to make potentially different recommendations or to step in and do lobbying or advocacy at some point in this process. But right now where we're at is we just need like a working group of people to dig in and engage some way. And we could sort of tackle those questions about what strategically makes most sense to do that push, I think maybe at a later date, but for the time being, yeah, just to put those two things out there so you're aware of how this committee would operate. Willie.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that this is broken off of an initial VACD committee or subcommittee. And so I'm wondering if anybody who was part of that or is part of that VACD governance committee wants to be, any supervisors who are part of that want to be on focusing on this aspect of it versus VACD charter or whatever the other one was.
Well, Willie, it's strange you should ask that. I had been part of the VACD governance committee work. And I think it's fair to say the VACD governance committee work was initiated with the notion of trying to be proactive in the event that the legislature did open up our statutes, and there's more than one, to sort of be in a position to help them understand what the districts do, where we come from, how long we've been around, how we exist, how council exists, so that we weren't necessarily in a position of just reacting to what the legislature decides they're going to give us. So, you know, I've been a member of the VACD Governance Committee, even today in its reduced role and assignment, if you will, if they're looking at VACD bylaws. But and I've been a part of that since its creation. I haven't heard from any other members on that committee that they want to jump in and join the committee if the council forms one. But I would, as chair of council, I guess I'm offering to try to stay involved with a governance committee under council. Made the pitch several months ago to supervisory union reps and alternates about jumping into governance committee when it was under VACD. So I'm prepared to do that again if we create this committee under council. But I don't think we have to limit it just to council reps or their alternates. We can open it up to all supervisors, all associates that are interested in taking this on and understanding what the existing statutes are and some of their deficiencies.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd like to take it back to my union reps or not the union reps, the supervisors in our union, and ask. My sense, I mean, I'm just trying to think about how to sell it to them. And the thing that really seems important to me is the language about elections and who's eligible to vote for supervisors. And that, you know, that's super uncomfortable to be part of an organization that has language like that and its laws that allow it to exist. And I'm wondering if I guess I'm hoping I could sell it to some supervisors, so sell involvement to some supervisors to be like, don't you think we should update our democracy to match, you know, at least what I think are our values?
Yeah, and that question has come up.
Yeah.
You know, is what's on the books constitutional or not?
And we can, I think, provide a recap of the conversation to date that's happened under the governance committee, so that we wouldn't be completely starting from scratch, but those types of questions have been sort of identified and highlighted as priority to tackle. Yeah, absolutely. Nina?
Yeah, I totally agree with where the discussion's gone on this. And just to kind of give you guys a way to frame this, like housekeeping updates, right? Things that are out of, you know, they're not appropriate for current day. Like those usually go and get approved without a lot of issues. The policy items, again, just like housekeeping, are still subject to the administration approval. And those tend to be, you know, the governor picks and chooses which policy items sort of move forward from the administration in a given cycle and at a given point in the legislative process. So housekeeping items, having a fully ready package of housekeeping requests by essentially July would be like a great deliverable of this group. Just noting that, you know, I think there's some discussion and backdrop, but there's probably a handful of really pretty straightforward requests that could be proposed to kind of encompass that like housekeeping approach. And those tend to be a little bit easier to move.
Right. NRCS and, you know, the NRCDs and broader SWCDs have had a really long relationship. And I'm offering, we are not an official member, we're an advisor to NRCC, and I would love to help out or at least participate in a capacity that you guys feel comfortable with. So I'll offer that if necessary. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Linda.
Yeah, I just, number one, I want to really thank Willie for the great thought, you know, about how you take this back and how you sell it and try to get some participation. We may put you in charge of board recruitment just because that's already a great idea and a great way to do it. But thank you so much for stepping forward with that thought with your own supervisory union. And yeah, I appreciate, Travis, you coming forward with advisory capacity. I think that, if we could, make some steps with the housekeeping things, that would be a first step. And then, as we have a new ED come with the ACD, that maybe people are going to be curious about meeting that person or something, that will somehow bring in more supervisor participation. Maybe we can have more folks that will come forward and help us with the visioning too. But I think this is all great thoughts and great progress. Thank you all.
Bill, did you? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, one of the reasons we chose this strategy was involving our governmental members of council in this process. Seemed like it would be an asset, that there was, like, we originally went into this, like, we need to figure out what we want and then we'll tell them. But we actually figured out that you can really help us in that. So just the few things you've mentioned today, Nina, knowing that we have a very favorable and collaborative group in Vermont, I'm not scared that something would backfire. And then the other is that everything we've gotten from our lobbying consultants is you need to have the agencies behind you in anything you're going to do in the legislature. It's not like you go off on your own. So doing this together. And then I think the third thing I'd say, we really learned through the process we tried last year, which was to go to the most difficult points first, which didn't actually work out well. Some of the sort of detail that Claire's working through now is very beneficial to districts and will have a learning curve. So and you'll hear it when she explains the work she's been doing, but just taking advantage of some of the opportunities that are already in our statute, and districts haven't taken advantage of some of those opportunities. So that this is going to be actually a little slower process than I think we anticipated, and having the sort of deliberative nature of this body is great. And then if something comes up where we need the ACD to call a meeting, where there's a thorny issue where we need external facilitation or something like that, our organizational development consultants, are also sort of looking at all our functions, and they have some recommendations about that. So as Claire said, there may be a place for VACD at some point, but letting this path sort of move forward. Just the information you provided today, Nina, was useful to us.
Yeah.
We didn't have that information before. That there's this, like, this is the timeline for housekeeping items.
Yeah.
I think those are my additions. I think this is going to be great.
Yeah. And I just want to say, we haven't really discussed what this would look like. We're just forming the committee right now. But one of the benefits or one of the things that I would most look forward to is working with this committee to help provide me with guidance with the work that I'm doing and outreaching to our other agencies or offices of the state, to try to, pursue some of the, resources that are available to districts under statute currently. I've been doing that outreach, but, we don't, and bringing that to the finance committee on a monthly basis, but this would be sort of a way to get the board involved and provide a little bit more guidance and oversight to that work that I'm doing. So I would really appreciate that. And in terms of a workload, we haven't really talked about it, but I would anticipate meetings being once a month, maybe.
Or around that.
Around that.
45 days, maybe.
Maybe once a month, once every other month. But if we are aiming to get recommendations by the timeline, Nina, that you outlined, we would need to be meeting pretty soon and pretty frequently, I think.
And just to clarify that timeline, Claire, for the agency bag, we get a request for requests around July, and it goes to an internal team who review and approve or deny. We get a lot of denials. And I believe it was due to the administration, meaning final approved by our secretary. It was due to the administration right around the same time as the budget, which they say October 1st, October 15th. So essentially, if we're aiming to try to get a council approval of any proposed statute changes, I would want to make sure that happens by July or August, and that all agency partners have support for those as well, who are part of the process, so that it would be geared up for a successful housekeeping proposal.
Thanks, Dina.
Right? Anybody else?
So if people are interested, they should contact you.
Why, yes.
Okay.
And I'll just say one more thing is acknowledging that NACD is also a resource for council and NASCA.
And NASCA.
There's a lot of information gathered and information sharing going on within those circles.
So next steps would be,
I can certainly get an email out to people, just sort of poking and prodding them again about the committee, its mission, the need for volunteers, and now we can add to that sort of a timeline.
and I think if possible, maybe today the board could vote to authorize this committee, the existence of this committee generally, and maybe put some basic outlines about the work. I'm sorry, I don't have a motion prepared, but I think the motion would be to create a governance committee with the purpose of reviewing statute.
Anybody else have anything to add to what Claire just so artfully came up with? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that motion.
By
Second.
Richard, seconded by Linda. Thank you. We're all clear on the motion? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Unanimous once again. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. The next topic here is I was going to just outline some of the work I've already been doing with statute to make the board aware. I did put this in the administrator report that I sent out before the meeting. It's on page 3. And there's a list of topics here that came up in our statute review that I've been trying to chase down answers to. So the first one here is a confirmation of district's ability to make purchases under the state's contract process through building and general services. Districts are specifically in statute for this. And I've had confirmation from building and general services that districts can make purchases under state negotiated contracts. And I sent out guidance to districts about that back in October. We've discussed it. I think this is a pretty straightforward power that districts have. It's just another option on how to make purchases. Linda?
Sorry, I missed where you're looking or what document you're looking at.
You know, I can share my screen. It is it's the administrator report that I sent out, and it's page 3, but let me share my screen so everyone's on the same page. Okay, so this is the second section I'm talking about. So yeah, I'm just kind of running through this list of things I've been working on, but yeah, this first one was the confirmation that districts can make purchases using state negotiated contracts. Hopefully that saves districts some money in the future. But if you have questions about any of these items, please let me know. I'm going to run through them pretty quickly for the sake of time. A separate section of statute actually says that districts are to be treated as state agencies for the purposes of insurance. That section of statute has been sort of confirmed with the Agency of Administration, but how to make that work is still up in the air. And by that, I mean how, like, districts would still need to pay for insurance, but they would need to pay the state instead of, going out and getting private insurance. So I'm waiting for details from them about what the rates would be and how to make payments. I just heard back from them 2 days ago. I was hoping to get confirmation of the details by this meeting, didn't come through, but I am hoping for some, actionable information on that, hopefully by the end of the month, maybe into January. But essentially, Agency of Administration has confirmed that this section of statute is, applicable, relevant. We're reading it correctly. Districts should be covered by the state's insurance. So waiting on details to issue guidance around that, but hopefully that again will be something that saves districts money in the future by being able to get insurance through those through the state negotiated rates. There's this question I referenced earlier about how a new open meeting law impacts conservation districts. And I got this question from a district, Willie, I believe this is Caledonia. So there's a section of this new law that distinguishes between advisory and non-advisory bodies. We're not really sure which districts are. I put the question to the Secretary of State's office. They weren't able to say offhand. And unfortunately, given that it's an election year and I was asking in November, it's been taking them some time to get back to me. But again, I am hoping for some confirmation on that in the next month. I'm bugging people to try to get this information. But once we do have that, we will be releasing guidance to districts about how the new law impacts them. And this, yeah, happy to talk more about that if there's questions. But another question we have is about the district's eligibility to get to secure loans under the Municipal Equipment Loan Fund. This is a loan fund run by the Office of the Treasury to help municipalities purchase heavy equipment like trucks, et cetera. So this could potentially be another way districts could use state resources to get good rates on loans and to ultimately save money. We have this question about staffing is pretty straightforward in statute. Supervisory unions are identified as being able to have staff, but if they do, they have to be state employees. Council, there's nothing in statute that says anything about state employees, but council is likewise authorized to have staff. We do not have state staff for either type of entity right now. The State Attorney General's office has referred us to the Department of Human Resources. So I will be following up on this in the future just to see what the recommended process would be to make that happen. We have sort of 3 different ways we could go about it. But I kind of want to hash out the details with the state folks about what it would mean to have state staff and how that interfaces with sort of the administrative back end of the state system. So that's something to be explored. There's been a really big push about how to figure out health insurance and benefits options for districts. I put this here. This is not really a statute question, but it's so much as it is like a resource question and a guidance question. So I've sort of been lumping this in with the rest of this work I've been doing. I did reach out to Vermont League of Cities and Towns for guidance on health insurance and benefits. And they are open to a partnership whereby they create guidance for districts or trainings for districts specifically based on some of these questions that are popping up. So that's something we're working on. We don't have anything specifically nailed down, but I think our next step is requesting a couple of trainings, probably one on open meeting law, one on health insurance, to get started with that we can run with. So that's in the works. We do have a website for council, which I'll be pulling up here in a second, but we have done some outreach in the past to the Agency of Digital Resources about getting a state website for council. Right now, it's on the VACD website. We'd like that to be on a state website. So Julia and I will be working on this in the new year. But that again is going to be interfacing with sort of other state agencies to get this resource for council. And then there's a question about per diems. There was a change to per diem law last year. Council has tried to put in an official request to up our per diems. There's a process outlined in statute about how to get increased per diems approved. This is sort of one of the areas where things get very complicated for council. And Nina, I might welcome any weighing in from Agency of Ag's perspective, but essentially, we have been in contact with Agency of Ag about potentially being included in their process for requesting per diem increases. The last I heard back was that because Agency of Ag does not directly administer those per diems, we were not included this year, and I'm not sure if we would be in future years. We may have to make that request directly, so that would be a process to look into. Nina, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'll just share, I was also not 100% clear on how this all played out. It was brought up in our budget discussion. Essentially, the legislature passed some language that laid out a process for potential approvals of additional per diems. And the gist that our administration provided was the governor's not going to support an increase for basically the boards, state boards that this would apply to. Whether a request was submitted for any of the agency's boards per diems, I cannot answer. I do not know for sure if there was. I don't believe there was. And the response to council that came from our director of operations was essentially we did not include an NRCC per diem increase request, and the reasoning behind that was that we don't directly administer it. So yeah, a little bit of more gray area.
Yeah. And this is the difficulty of being identified in statute as a state agency, but not having standing as or resources as an agency. So this may be something that I try to figure out how to put forward a request directly. I don't know how to do that. So this would be maybe something I would work with Agency of Ag or ANR to try to understand that process better. And then with council's approval, would make that request directly if possible. We're also going to be going into the legislative session where we will be talking with the legislature directly. And I think we do have an opportunity to make that request in those discussions as well. So there's a couple different avenues we could look at, but this is a very a tricky space for us. Linda?
Yeah, just, can you clarify for me that this process that you're talking about is for council and our members? It would not cover district supervisors. Is that correct? And am I correct in thinking that if a district is wanting to pay more than the $50 per diem, there is a process that they are supposed to go through?
So this is a very good question, and I don't know the answer 100% right now. The request that we put in would cover districts as well. We were trying to do a blanket coverage of just everybody all at once because that seems like the safest way to go is just say like, we're requesting an increase for everybody. Everybody can fall under our umbrella and sort of be pulled along like that. I would hope that the process isn't that every district has to make a request individually under the process outlined in statute, because that's a budget, essentially it's a budget request. So we would have to have an individual budget from every district, submit that individually to the governor's office, and that's a lot of moving parts. So I'm hoping we don't have to do that. I don't know though. how this plays out with local government entities. It seems that the law was crafted with state entities in mind. And so this is a question that I need to nail down. Potentially thinking about going to the State Attorney General's office with this again, Secretary of State's office, VLCT would be my resources for outreach. I haven't done that yet. Our big thing was just getting the request in so that we could get that ball rolling. So some of this is that I just don't know right now.
I'll just add, Claire, the complicating factor is that NRCC's core services goes through the Agency of Agriculture's budget. So I think Claire and I were on the same page that any per diem request would occur as part of that budget submission, because our administration looks at per diems as part of the budget process. And again, we don't decide what's in our budget. We draft our budget, it goes to the governor's office and they approve. So we had guidance from essentially our budget analysts with AOA that the governor wasn't going to approve any per diem updates or increases. So I don't believe our agency submitted any on behalf of our agency. And they also told Claire, well, we don't directly administer NRCC, so we're not able to include it at this time. So I think that probably it's a new law, and we'll see a little bit more how things play out over this next session. Obviously, anything introduced by the legislature is introduced by the legislature. So the components that are approved as part of the agency's budget process, right, or not included as part of the agency's budget process is the budget process. The legislature is an independent body and will act accordingly.
And Nina, I don't know that this would be your stance, but because Agency of Ag did not submit our request, I feel that we may have a space to submit that on our own. I understand that would be part of the Agency of Ag's budget, but I'm having a hard time separating out the request to increase from the overall budget process. And in some way, we need to get on a state list that says that council is an entity that does issue per diems under statute. So like, we just need to be on a list somewhere with the state, recognizing that we are an entity that pays per diem. And I don't know that would be the Agency of Agriculture's responsibility to get us on that schedule, given that you don't directly administer the per diems. That might just fall to council ourselves. And that's the space where I don't want to put you in a hard position, but that would be my next step, would be to try to act independently with council on that.
The only thought I have is Nick Kramer, who was our previous budget analyst for both Agency of Ag and ANR, was just appointed to a different position, which means we'll be getting a new budget analyst in AOA, and potentially introducing that budget analyst to the council budget line item and providing them with an understanding would be a reasonable and approachable next step for us in general, to think about once that individual is onboarded.
That sounds great.
I have a problem. I got a comment. I don't understand this state right now. You want to see agriculture survive, conservation survive, farmers survive. This is a hell of a way of showing it. It's like feeding a cow less grain and you want more milk. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry.
Well, I appreciate your comment, Richard. Again, I don't make these decisions.
I'm not pointing it to you, Nina.
Yeah.
It's just an overall comment.
I would guess that the administration was very conscientious about the state's revenue issues and general affordability, and that informed much of the agency budget process throughout the fall.
Well, they're going to be more concerned about it for the future because you're going to have less and less of guys like me. Period.
Yeah. Richard, I just want to say your comments are noted, and I always hear your voice in the back of my mind when we're tackling this issue. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I understand. And we were trying to explain to the state sort of powers that be that we interface with about how difficult engagement is when we're working with communities that have, there's a cost to being at council meetings, and we need to recognize that and support that. So we're trying to have those conversations. And again, if there's an opportunity to push this independently with council, that's something I'm willing to do and would look for ways to do. So yeah. Thank
Oh,
you.
I have another question. Another topic. Have you looked into, or has it been looked into, the possibilities of a district being able to borrow money for a new office? I think that wasn't doable, but I'm not sure.
So districts cannot have mortgages.
Okay, that was my question.
Specifically.
And how do we
Yeah.
advance it to another office?
So the mortgage question is probably one of those things that we would flag for change within statute. One of those fixes that maybe we could get in a request for the next legislative session, or the deadline that Nina outlined. However, mortgages sort of are very specific, and I think there are opportunities for districts to fund purchases under other types of financial vehicles. I think a lot of people have reported going to municipal loans as
Okay.
a source of funding. That's something I do need to confirm. So I just want to say this is a squishy issue right now, and I don't have 100% confirmation from the state attorney general's office on this, but that's what I have heard from districts who have successfully made purchases, is that municipal loans are possible and are not the same as mortgages. That's what I'll say for now. I will try to get out guidance about this more broadly, because I know your district's dealing with this, others will be in the future. So once I have something more concrete, this will be on the list of things to get guidance out about.
Okay, thank you.
Claire, quick question. And we don't have to address this today, but the bullet on insurance, and I speak about this from experience. The NRCD's employees are driving our vehicles, and I know when I've worked in other states, it's always been a hot topic because you have third-party vehicle insurance, you have general liability insurance, you potentially have professional liability insurance for an individual, such as a district manager who's, making some of those decisions with the board. And then you have director and officer insurance. You use the term insurance. Does that cover all of those?
Yes.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
my conversation with the Agency of Administration has been that they provide any number of insurance options to the entities that are covered, which could include things like directors and officers. It could include general liability. It could include bonding, if so there's a wide range of products they offer. And so but that's part of what I'm hoping to get follow up on, is more specifics. Like unfortunately, they don't have just like a schedule of services they provide, like a menu. So, but I am hoping to get that information about, like, specifically, what do you provide? What do you estimate it would be for a district of XYZ size? And who do districts contact? How do they make the payment? So that sort of next step would be outlined. Yeah.
Just having had to walk through that with the district in a vehicle accident, it's a touchy situation. So in a government.
If you have thoughts on specific coverages every district should have in operating council or NRCS vehicles, please let me know so I can include that on the list of recommendations.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah. That's all I have for this item, and I do know we're running behind, so
Great. Thank you, Claire. And I'll just, before we drop the per diem, I think the discussion is more than just supervisory union reps. It's per diem for district supervisors, right?
yes,
Yeah.
ideally.
Yeah, I mean, because the whole notion of supervisor recruitment.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to be a supervisor because of the per diem they're gonna get, right? But the per diem is definitely helpful to encouraging as great amount of participation as we can.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
it's not just per diems for council. It's
Right.
conservation districts.
Yes, and our request covered council, it covered districts, and it covered supervisory union meetings.
Okay.
So all 3 levels. Linda.
Yeah, some of you have heard me push this or talk about this, but on our own board level, I pushed for us getting per diems, which we hadn't been for years, and brought it through the diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. And I feel that with the state government that they should be on board with that, that if we want people involved and we want people from all walks of life involved, then we have to help with access. And, whether it's young people with kids that they need watch so that they're not on screen with them during a Zoom, or older people that need someone to drive, whatever the issues are, this is part of why I have really pushed for it, that it needs to be something that happens, not that a supervisor has to request, and always has to be the one that says, do I get per diem for this? It's something that should be happening, that we get paid, and then if we don't need that, we want to donate it back to the organization or whatever we can. But that's just some thoughts from me on that. Thank you.
And that reminds me, Linda, thank you for bringing that up. Council is changing how we're going to be doing per diems. We in the past have relied on supervisors to request per diem. And this would be under the core services agreement that we have with every district. We ask that districts invoice for that, like put it on their core services invoice as a separate item, and then we pay that out. But we are going to be more proactively keeping track of attendance at meetings, and then issuing per diem without the need for a supervisor to request that proactively. So that will just happen. And then I guess if there's a concern or if there's an error in our record keeping, you can let us know. But essentially, like you were saying, it will be more proactive going forward and more of an assumption rather than putting the burden on the supervisor themselves.
I haven't had to worry about it too much because Corey actually does it for me, but I don't think that's happening with all supervisory unions. So I think that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, it has been inconsistent. So thank you.
Okay. So was there anything else on this, the administrator update report you wanted to just touch on, or all right, everybody's got this?
Yeah.
So, okay. So that brings us to the NRCC website.
This will take just a minute. I'm just going to share our screen to show you our existing website. This was a question that came up. We haven't really broadly, put out the fact that we have a website. It was in development for a while, back when Molly was our communications coordinator. Julia finalized it when she came on board, and has done a lot of work along with Katie to add content to it. But just to make you aware, this is where we post information about our meetings, and then also historically our meeting materials and minutes. So right now, this is where everything lives. But again, we're hoping to migrate this to a state website in the future. So that's all I wanted to share.
Great. Not seeing any yellow hands out there, so the agenda talks about a 10-minute break. Do we want to break or just encourage people to get up on their own and keep moving? I would suggest we keep moving. We're looking at adjournment around 3:30.
That's the goal. So
Yeah.
we'd have another hour.
Another hour.
Agree. I agree.
Keep moving?
Yep.
Okay. So
Don't forget there's coffee and cookies.
oh, coffee and cookies for those of us that are here in Montpelier, sorry. So you may see people here just get up and mosey in the back, but we will press on. So next up would be VACD report.
I was gonna have lunch.
Is lunch.
No, that's lunch. I didn't have time.
Oh, unless
No,
you want to go to partner updates first.
oh, yeah, no. Yeah, what should you partner updates? Because they've heard a lot from me. It'd be good for you guys.
Okay.
And I'll fill you in after.
So Nina and Travis are our two partners here today, right?
Yes, and Willie, before we jump in,
Yeah, thanks. I just want to, I can only stay until 3, so if there's any other voting that might need to be done, well, I guess just want to make sure that I wouldn't drop out.
No, Claire's shaking your head. No, we're good. All the voting has been done.
yeah, thank you for that. The rest of the agenda really is just updates and report outs. And yeah, so we will have this recorded and we'll share this after if you need to jump off.
I can jump in with a quick couple quick updates from the Agency of Ag, if that's okay.
You have the floor.
Okay. I don't have a super great prepared list to provide you all, but a couple of important updates to be aware of. So avian influenza, there was a recent mandate by USDA to continue to monitor milk supply. So Vermont is going to be testing all bulk tanks. And this is essentially a little bit more proactive than what the USDA requirements are at this point in time, but we're just going for it. Bringing some new staff on as well as the dairy division to go to all farms and test all bulk tanks. So this is, again, just an ongoing issue. We don't have any avian influenza in Vermont dairy cattle at this point in time, or New England or New York, but there are a lot of concerns about continued spread across the country. So our folks are moving in that direction. So if you work with farms, if you know farms, just make sure that they're aware that this process is happening. The other update I just wanted to provide briefly was that the winter spreading ban began December 15th. I think everyone's pretty used to this by now. It's been going on for more than 30 years. So if you see any spreading, please let us know. We'd like to go out and check it out. And then on Monday, there was an informational session held regarding the essentially the state's response to EPA's petition. So the state submitted a comprehensive corrective action plan regarding the CAFO program at ANR, and there was an informational session held on Monday. If folks weren't able to attend or would like information, I can share some links. But essentially, we have to wait to see what EPA will say in terms of a response to the proposed corrective action plan. So that's where we're at right now with that issue. And ANR is still lead on that. They were the entity that was petitioned. But we are working closely at the governor's office level and starting to work at the programmatic level to understand what this will look like.
Thank you, Nina. Linda, I see your hand is raised. I did mute you, so you might have to unmute.
Just a quick question, Nina, on the testing for the avian flu, is that not something that the dairy processors or whatever could do? I mean, you said something about putting on more staff. You actually have to come to the farms and get samples.
So there was discussion, and I think in some states, processors are going to be the primary, and we will be working with processors as well. But just to, be proactive about the issue, I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and there was a woman who was talking, she's from the state of New York, and I said, well, we have 3,000 dairy farms, so our approach is going to look a little bit different, right? Vermont's got under 500 shipping dairy. So it's a little bit more reasonable for us to be proactive and try to get on top of things as early and as feasible as possible. So essentially, if we were to test processors first and then identify a concern, we have to go to the bulk tanks anyway. So they're just going to go to the bulk tanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Nina? Okay, if not, Travis?
Yeah, hey, thanks. It's great to be with everybody. It's funny, I think Nina said she's sorry she didn't have a written report, but my personal goal in life is I'm in a lot of meetings with Nina, and Nina is always prepared, and her presentations are awesome, her reports are great. So I've made it my personal commitment to be better than Nina. I'm not, just FYI, I can't be better than Nina, but I am upping my game. So because of Nina. So I'm just gonna share my screen if that's okay. I do have, you don't have these in the written notes because I didn't want them printed off. But this will be as part of the meeting minutes at the end. You feel free to look at some of these. You will see kind of a new format for some of our written updates. Anything on here that is blue with an underline as a link to something. One update I don't have on here was that Fish and Wildlife Service recently proposed to list the monarch butterfly as threatened, and they are seeking public comment right now for the next 90 days. I don't know what it will look like under a new administration, but that does have potential to impact our ag producers and others in this state. So just no, that's not on here, but lots of different updates. So I've kind of grouped it into public funding opportunities, public information, and then producer funding opportunities. Sorry, there's just a lot going on. We are announcing in February, just heads up, an Act Now process for our producers. Essentially, right now, it takes about 6 to 8 months for a producer to get a contract. We've set a goal to get a producer a contract within 45 days. This is Act Now. We're trying to keep it simple. So some of the practices that are going to be available will be cover crop, no-till, reduced till, tree and shrub establishment, and nutrient management, and also a new practice for us, soil carbon amendment. And here's a link if you want to go find out a little bit more about those practices. But that will be Act Now. You'll hear about it more from your district conservationists, hopefully in your January meeting. This is something that I think is super interesting. We received about 1,000 applications for financial assistance this year. That blows. We usually got about 600 typically. So needless to say, the SAF is busy working. And I've given you a summary of the funds that are available for fiscal year 25. I do have a Farm Bill update, but really it is just stuff that you know already. And then some other things. Also, I'm hoping this stays static, but I do have some key staffing updates for you. We've got some new leadership team members in the system, and just wanted to give you an update of what's happening there. But most importantly, I just wanted to walk through real quick a couple of things that you've heard me talk about before. Locally led conservation delivery. I've been on a roadshow tour to I've hit almost every single one. Not all of them have invited me, but I offered to go to all the districts and talk a little bit about how we, NRCS, are investing more in strengthening the relationship with the conservation districts. Not that I thought it was bad, but I think just so we can be innovative and strategic moving forward. I've included some of the key concepts here just for review. Most of you that have been in those meetings already have access to this, but this is just a refresher. Again, informing and investing, kind of standardizing how we're really strengthening locally led conservation at the local level. I also, just a reminder, so this is kind of the concept where the conservation districts are chair of the local work groups. They're developing conservation action plans, which is essentially a strategic plan, and VACD and NRCS have collaborated to offer, I think, $5,000 to conservation districts to work through the conservation action plan process to develop that. How many conservation districts did that, Jill? Do you
I
remember?
think we have 7 grantees. Several districts at least one district is doing it on their own. And a few other districts are interested in doing it, but just weren't ready with the timeline. It was a pretty tight turnaround. So I do think some districts are actually going to start this process and
Yeah.
finish it next year.
Yep. Which we're totally cool with. We recognize it's kind of a pilot concept. We are anticipating up to around $6 million available for this concept, locally led conservation delivery. And essentially, once a district or local work group develops that strategic plan, that conservation action plan, we're soliciting via proposal, and these are due March 23rd, I believe, and I've included all this information that will come out to you in the notes for a deadline. Then we'll review those. We'll have, some of the partners involved in some of the review, and then we'll let the conservation districts know what proposals have been selected, and then they'll have about 3 months to do some outreach before an August 22nd, 2025 application deadline for producers. So we're pretty excited about it. We're really leaning into locally led conservation and recognize that there are a lot of folks at play. This is really a result of a lean kind of process improvement project that we've been working on with VACD and the conservation districts. And this is kind of the culmination of that. We're excited to get that done. So just that's kind of what we're working on. I'm kind of excited to get that done, and on to the next process. So we'll continue. So you'll see some of this information you'll have access to. The last thing I wanted to update you on was a few months ago or a few meetings ago, I did talk to you guys about a reorg or a realignment that we're going through. About a year and a half ago, we had I put a team together that went out and talked to the partners, talked to folks, and felt like we needed to realign a little bit. So just a reminder, our current structure, actually not anymore, but our former structure was that we had 4 zones with a zone district conservationist. And you can see some of the boundaries up there. We had a northwest zone, northeast zone, central zone, and a south zone. And we had 4 district conservationists. And I've kind of attached the conservation district map on the right to kind of show you how it aligns. And the proposed structure that we're currently moving into, I'll give you an update on. Here's what we're moving to is a team structure for us. So we're going from 4 zones to 7 teams. So we'll have 7 district conservationists that will oversee the work of the teams. This will not impact the office that a producer currently goes to. There will be a change in a handful of districts with the district conservationist you work with. And you can kind of see the map up there of where we're heading to. We don't have the teams named yet. They're just team 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But currently, the job vacancies, the openings for those district conservationists closed last week. We'll be doing interviews hopefully this week and next, making some selections. And our goal is to have final job offers for these positions by early January, because we are anticipating a hiring freeze on January 20th. That's what happened last time the Trump administration came in. And again, that's not a political statement. That is Travis is impartial. He just knows what happened last time this administration came in. And so we are hoping to get people in place by January 20th, because that's what the last cutoff was when we had a hiring freeze. And then if there are any gaps in the system, let's say some of our, higher graded planners are promoted to a district conservationist, We actually announced solo conservationist positions, and so we have a plan in place that we can just flush everybody through the system, fill some gaps, and then go from there. So we are hoping that we can make an announcement to you folks with who those new district conservationists will be sometime in January, and then we'll be in place. So we're excited about the change and having more intimate relationships, if you will, with our conservation districts as we put some more leadership out. So thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Can I ask how NRCS is communicating this change with conservation districts and?
Yeah, we have most of it's coming through our district managers and our district conservationists and our assistant for field ops, Alexia. And then once we have names of folks, so right now our current district conservationists are covering these offices. So you can see, like, even though if you look at Addison County and Chittenden and Washington, did I get my grade school stuff good? So right now that is a zone. It's proposed to be split into two, but right now Mary Beth Witten, who is our district conservationist in Middlebury, is also the district conservationist for that team in the middle with Williston and Berry or Berlin. So once we have names to share, that's really when we'll go out and say, hey, here's the new district conservations, because we didn't want to make the change and say, by the way, you don't have a district conservationist and create chaos in the system. So we're just kind of waiting until we have names.
Sure, thanks.
Good. Thanks, that's all I've got from NRCS.
And for the benefit of the supervisory union reps who are here, Felicia came to a DM meeting on Monday and made it clear that farmer contracts and applications that are in the system are going to continue to be managed where they started. They're not going to be moved so that those contracts can get through the current system. So it's
Thank you, Jill.
So it's not disruptive to the farmers.
That was our goal, right? We're not making producers change midstream. Producers won't have to walk into a different office. Yeah. I mean, we could talk for hours about that, but yeah. So yeah,
the joys.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Travis?
Thank you, sir.
Allie, not to put you on the spot, but this is a space for partner updates. And do you have anything from the Agriculture Water Quality Partnership?
Sure. Let's see, regional coordinators, there's 5 regional coordinators that with districts that are supported through a grant agreement for that work for 2 years. We just wrapped up our first year. And so this fall, every single one of those regions, which is Northeast, Northwest, Central, Southeast, and Southwest, all had meetings. So we're currently in the process of doing the annual review for that work and also collaborating with them on planning for the winter meetings. Also, as part of that and the support by the partnership steering committee and other folks, we did some extensive surveying to get input regarding challenges, gaps, where things are working in our work, and also get some input that we will utilize as we are working to update our 5-year strategic plan. So we're in our last year of that strategic plan. Thank you to Agency of Ag who processed all of that data and has prepared it so that we can share that and utilize that as we work with others, organizations in the partnership to develop a draft plan for 2025 through 2030. So we're currently working on that, and we'll be putting that out for comment around the time that we're having our next partnership annual meeting, which we're really excited about. That's going to be Tuesday, March 11th at Killington. We have a snow date, thanks to Jill, as the Thursday after, the 13th. And we continue to, utilize our communication tools and resources that we've developed over the last few years. So we have a newsletter going out this week with a lot of updates. If anyone on this call isn't on the newsletter, perhaps get in touch with Claire so I can get you on the listserv. We put a call out to the partners every month, asking for information about program staff changes, success stories, opportunities to collaborate, resources, and put that together to blast out to folks. And I think that's kind of it in a nutshell for now.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, Rick, can I suggest that we move to supervisory union updates given Willie's time?
Sure.
Okay. So I think the next, we're going to move on to supervisory union updates, and this is just an opportunity for SU reps to report out on any significant, updates, developments from within your districts. It doesn't have to be formal, but while we still have Willie, wanted to give the chance. And Willie, if you have any updates, I would welcome you to go first.
Okay, thank you. I didn't prepare anything. But I did check in with Essex and Orleans union reps a couple months ago, and we didn't have any specific updates from each of them. I suppose the update from the union is that we're doing a lunch. Sarah Damsel has planned a lunch for our union. This, I don't know, next week, I guess, to get together, and we hope to hold a union meeting there, which would primarily be for me to update the other union reps. And then what was, oh, I guess I missed, I wasn't here at the last meeting, but we did hold we call it a tri-district meeting, which is also functions as a union meeting, where we elect our representatives. And I think that's where I was elected to be the rep here. We did that this past summer in Burke. We do it every year, and it's pretty great to connect with other supervisors and talk about kind of what work we do.
Thank you. Willie, I'm sorry, I didn't really connect with you ahead of time. I didn't realize that this would be your first meeting, to give you a heads up. But thank you for the update. And I would say that the Northeast Union has been very active and extensive in your meetings. So I would just, put it out there that if other supervisory unions are interested in different models too of how to get together and do events together, maybe contact the Northeast, because I thought the holiday party idea was a great one. And I'm so sorry I can't be there, but thank you for that update. Richard, Linda, anybody else with updates from union?
The only thing I could throw in is that we've got our own office now. We're renting an office. And right now our DM is a little bit sidelined with a knee injury or knee repair, knee surgery. But things are going, they're going fine. We're doing well. And the more grants you put out there, the more grants we're going to go for. And we'll pull them off too.
Thanks, Richard. I always love hearing updates from Franklin because you do always have something new. Your district has grown so fast. And I think Lauren, reported out on kind of a cool collaboration between I think it was Franklin, Lamoille, and Grand Isle around local work group meetings. So I think that was a really cool update, which maybe we can ask Lauren to write up and share more broadly once those meetings are completed, because it sounded like you had a lot of success within those 3 districts on on getting people to those meetings and responses to surveys. So a lot of engagement, which was really cool.
Yeah, we try up here. We're still a bunch of workers.
And we know it. Thanks, Richard. Linda.
Yeah, I don't have a formal update. I was sitting here thinking that maybe we need to go up to Willie's supervisory union for some training or have them come down to ours. Having said that, we usually have our annual meeting. We're in with Ottaquechee, and we usually hold that in January, and that is still in the works. I know, or I believe that Ottaquechee is still shy a couple of supervisors, but I think they're working on that. And, you know, there's still, her name is escaping me, but, you know, their district manager, I think is feeling a lot more comfortable in her role, and I think has been helping them do some great work. I thought Bill might be back on to talk a little bit about his own district. Our district just had a conservation coffee chat, so this is a little bit of district update, I guess, as well as supervisory union. Yesterday, I think this is the third or fourth one of those that Heather Blunk, our ag outreach specialist, has facilitated and gotten started. And each time we have it, it's a different group of folks there, which I think is great. So many of these meetings, you see the same faces, and every time we've had one of these chats, it seems there's different people there, so we hear different issues that come out of those. We do have our local work group is scheduled for January, and Heather put in a plug for that yesterday for people that are interested in attending that to put in their qualifications or whatever the term was that she used. For why they should be part of that. And yeah, just our district is busy. I think, you know, both districts in our supervisory union are able to do more with the better funding that's been coming through. We have definitely more staffing in our district, as I think you're all aware. That's just been very exciting to see the different kinds of projects that we're able to get done. And I'm just really impressed, I guess, with how Corey has broadened the geographical touch of these projects. Used to be for funding issues or whatever, a lot of our projects were in Brattleboro or maybe the next town to Brattleboro, and we've got things happening all through our district, which is terrific. And as all of you, I think, know, Corey and I are also busy on other fronts with the ACD and stuff, trying to find Jill's replacement, which I think we're touching on a little bit in a bit. But thank you all.
Thanks, Linda. And I know you touched on this, and I'm sorry Bill's not here, but oh, he's joining. We'll circle back to Bill for additional updates. Rick, I don't know if you want to give an update from the central, and then we could ask Kate to fill in on any additional.
Sure, I'll let Kate go first. Kate, if you want to give folks an update from the White River District area, then I can, when you're done, I can talk a little bit about Winooski to represent the two districts for the Central Supervisory Union.
Sure, you know, I'm not really prepared. I wasn't, I could have gotten a lot more information. One thing I can say is that the district is having their annual meeting on Friday. And I don't know if any of you are attending that or not. I obviously will not be. I won't be in Vermont until later in January. I'm really, you know, since I've been away and haven't been as engaged as maybe I should be, I don't think I really have much of an update other than that to provide. But next time we meet, I'll make sure I'm a little more organized and have more information, because I think it's really important, and that you know, all of us should be you know, trying to do the best we can to get information to everybody. So but thanks for the opportunity, and I will make sure next time that I am a little more prepared.
Kate, and I apologize. I did
Oh.
not I didn't do explicit outreach to the supervisory union reps this time around. I will do that for future meetings. And in fact, there's been an idea brought forth in past meetings about providing supervisory union reps with a template or sort of some guidance around report outs. So I can work on that for the next meeting. Thank you for that prompting. And
Don't
I
feel bad,
apologize.
Claire. I don't feel like I'm on the spot. It's okay. Thanks. But yeah.
Okay, of course.
Okay.
You just reminded me of something we've discussed before, so thank
Good.
you.
Okay, great.
Rick?
Yeah, quickly, I'm pleased to report that not only do we have a district manager at the Winooski district that's been there for now 6 months and running. We also have filled the 2 vacant positions, the 2 other staff positions that have been vacant over the last 6 months. Plus, we have an additional half-time person. So we have like a conservation specialist, and we have 1.5 agricultural specialists. So we're hoping that the half agricultural specialist will become a full-time ag specialist, giving us 2 of those positions once Kara sort of settles in and is successful in securing additional monies that would bring her up to full-time. So anyway, we're 1 district manager, 2.5 staff. We're thrilled about that. We also recently completed the Hands Mill Dam removal project. That was a project that had not only staff turnover, we also got audited by Department of Public Safety while the project was going on. So our new district got thrown into that deep end of the pool. But now that the project's done, it's a great example of that kind of work that needs to be done from a flood resiliency standpoint. It also demonstrates these large, complex projects, how such a project can result in additional work being done upstream in these small watersheds. So we've got a very large culvert replacement project that's pending. Lake Iroquois, we recently did a Lake Iroquois watershed action plan. That plan had a number of recommendations, one of which we've been able to apply for and receive grant funding on. So we're very excited about, being able to point to projects that we're piggybacking from one to another. So that covers the central.
Thanks, Rick. Bill, I see you've rejoined us. We were doing supervisory union report outs. Linda did report for your supervisory union, but if you have anything to add from Ottaquiche, feel free.
Okay, we just this month have hired a second person. It's a contract person to help Kelly with grants and administrative and bookkeeping. So we expect to be able to be more successful and get more grants now that we have someone to help her with that process. That's a big move forward for us. We were lucky. The funding came from WOV for the capacity enhancement grant program they had.
Thanks, Bill. I'm so excited that Kelly will have that support.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it for
Yeah.
SU rep updates.
Yeah.
Oh, Nina?
Yeah, just a quick question, Bill, for you. I know Kelly's been trying to get into the ag space a little bit, and that's new. Historically, White River's been covering the Ottaquiche area. I've had a handful of back and forth with Kelly, but I just wanted to check in and see if that was still a direction that Ottaquiche hopes to develop.
Yes, as she learns the position better and gets more comfortable with it. We work both with White River and Windham on that stuff. White River covers the northern part and Windham covers the southern part for us. So she's getting into that, but it'll be a while. We're looking forward to get that stuff going.
Thanks.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Bill.
Yep.
So I think that covers everybody. So next up is the ACD report.
Okay, I'll be really quick. Oh yeah, we don't need all that time. Aren't you happy? 15 minutes for all of it, or maybe 10. We have a lot going on. Let's just say, and I think all of you are aware of it because you've been in various meetings where it's being discussed. Let's just say primarily, the funding opportunities have led to growth that has been, led to some growing pains in the services that VACD and council are able to provide to districts, and a real need for more support for districts. And so we engaged at the with the inspiration of Walter Medwid, a member of our newly formed capacity building committee, suggested engaging consultants to look at our structures, our services, and our relationships with districts. And it's fairly VACD focused primarily because we could wrap our heads around it, but council inevitably ends up being part of the dialogue because we share staff in many cases and services. In many cases, we ended up hiring 2 consultants, Emily Bodecker and from Momentum Communications, and Sage Ruth from Structural Integrity. Most of you have met them. And Emily's been focused mostly on governance issues, and Sage mostly on sort of HR, organizational structure, finance issues. We're through a first phase, which happened at the annual meeting, sort of needs assessment, information intake, orientation for them. The next phase is they're going to take that, put it in a bottle, shake it up, and produce some recommendations for us to consider, which will also be a 2-step process, which we expect to be finished. There's going to be a VACD board meeting in February. Maybe it's actually going to be March. So by the end of March, there will be a series of recommendations. Some of the discussions we've been having for years, and in some of the cases, we're moving forward because we don't want to wait, where we're able to move forward. And Claire will describe some of what she's doing probably in a future meeting in that regard. And I'm leaving. So, we are shaking the bottom. So we're having a lot of discussions about transition, sharing of responsibilities, and acknowledgement that between VAC and council, we don't have enough staff to provide the services that districts are asking for. So we're having to make choices right now. We've got a legislative campaign coming up. And so maybe I should just say that, there may be some things that fall through the cracks in the next 3 to 6 months where there's this process of fewer staff doing more, me doing less, transitioning in a new person in, and it's really great though. We're having very thoughtful meetings. As I said in one meeting, it's a little bit like moving. It forces you to sort of clean your house a little bit. So that's what we're doing. We're looking at our systems and roles and responsibilities, and we expect to bring the consultants into that. And as changes are decided, we'll certainly share that with council. There's some, that's probably as far as I should go on the organizational development part. Action circles and legislative work. Claire has given you quite an indication of what she's been doing just on statute work. We decided to go ahead with a $3 million request. This is actually, I guess it was a finance committee decision. It wasn't a full board decision, the last one. So we did submit a $3 million appropriations or budget request to the governor through the Agency of Agriculture, through the governor's process. This is the same amount we've been asking for a number of years in our legislative campaign. What we had this year was the 612, do I have it right? Plus the 100,000 that Claire addressed earlier today. Let's see. So we're working already on just helping legislators become familiar with conservation districts. There are a lot of new legislators. There's been a lot of legislators change. some new caucuses and committees sort of started and then stalled a little bit with the election. One focused on regional structures, the absence of county government and county government, and the implications of that, and whether the state should be advocating for county government, and then also a flood recovery or an emergency recovery caucus. Both of those are a little bit stalled, waiting for the legislature to sort of restart. There's a million meetings to go to, many opportunities. Claire and I struggle, but to go to all of them. But some district managers some of the new district managers have stepped in and expressed interest, so that's good. We have some additional resources. We did sign a contract again with Action Circles to help guide our campaign for the appropriations request. We do now have an appropriations request document. And generally, I'll say Claire will be doing a bit more of the representational work as I phase out. And Julia will be helping to strengthen the link between Action Circles and districts. We have regular meetings with Action Circles, but the district staff have been like, we can't handle any meetings. So Julie is helping us to basically translate Action Circles, action steps, and sort of reiterate them and sort of follow up with specific districts for action steps needed. So that's what's happening there. It'll be a similar request to last year. I think that's it. And I will,
Jill,
yeah.
Can I jump in on
Absolutely.
Okay. So there were two specific items that I wanted to, under the legislative bullet point that I wanted to make council aware of, and that is that council is specifically named or has been included in two study committees that are going forward. So the first is the Committee on Regional and County Governance. You may have heard of this in the news, if not elsewhere, but council has been included as part of the technical advisory group that is advising the Legislative Study Committee in looking at the question of county and regional governance in Vermont. The question is whether or not Vermont needs general purpose government at the county level. And so far, that committee is currently on hold until the legislative session kicks off. But there was there were a couple meetings before the session started. Jill and I were able to attend one of the committee meetings and then one of the technical advisory group meetings. So we plan to be involved in that going forward, since conservation districts are county scale units of government here in Vermont, and actually do have some of the responsibilities and that may be looked at, especially with the, flood related work, other natural resource issues. So we intend to be present there, both to make sure that conservation districts are on the state's radar as they consider these issues, and also as potentially another avenue to educate people about conservation districts more broadly, as well as to, help the legislature understand our need for funding and our funding structure more broadly. So that is a sort of an educational opportunity, and something we'll be involved with. And then more recently, council has been named in a study committee that is, or I don't know if it's not a study committee, it's a committee that is looking to roll out some of the new statute provisions about Act 250. So this is brand new. We have not been to any meetings of this. It won't start until January, but we will need representation there as well. So I don't, we haven't confirmed. I'm sort of put my name forward as a volunteer to be involved in that, but if anyone else has interest in being involved in these kinds of committee work, I think you can be in contact with Rick. Since this is something that council is named in statute to do. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that Act 250, is it specific to housing, or is it just Act 250 and permits and?
I can speak to that a little bit. So what happened is I just happened to be following that bill, and districts used to be a more integral part of Act 250. And we realized districts had been entirely taken out. So I just happened to submit a memo late, but at least it got us into one part of the new Active 250 law, which is around the definition of Tier 3 lands, which are lands to be protected. So there's a study committee, it's a stakeholder committee basically to address that question. So it'll be defining what are Tier 3 lands. Basically, that's what the role of that study committee is. I asked to be put in a million, well, I'm exaggerating, like 20 different places in the bill, but we got in somewhere, and that's where we got in.
Yep.
There's a Tier 2, which is really where our constituents or land stewards live. There really wasn't a strong study committee associated with Tier 2. It's Tier 1, which is the developed lands, right? And there's a lot, you hear all that in the news quite a lot. And then there's Tier 3, the protected lands, and our constituents tend to fall in between the two. I mean, obviously, we're involved with all of these things, but the agricultural community falls between the two, and there's not a lot of study going on or defining going on for that group, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's probably enough.
Yeah, I think as we know more about this committee and its work, we'll certainly be in contact with district managers and as part of this, the conversation and with, with council, since council is the named entity. But again, if anybody's interested in these topics and would like to be involved more, please do reach out to me and to Rick.
Thank you.
Claire, quick, I know you and I talked about, some of the programs, and it just reminded me that with EWP, it's the Emergency Watershed Protection Program. It's a multi-million-dollar program related to disaster assistance, specifically with local sponsors. So most of the sponsors across the nation are counties. Conservation districts can be a sponsor. NRCC can be a sponsor. I had that thought the other day. But right now, it is a bit chaotic with towns as sponsors. I think in 2023 floods, we have 56 agreements, that vary across the landscape, dollar amount wise. But that is something we're thinking about. We're wondering if there could be a more efficient way. We talked about this, a county government that's not there, conservation districts, anything that we can do to help. We would love to figure out how to make it more efficient here in Vermont. So, yeah.
And this is maybe a little bit of a report out about that one technical advisory group meeting that we attended. The conversation behind this push towards establishing county government has been primarily around efficiency of government operations as well as access to federal funding. A lot of that's been FEMA funding in conversation so far, but I do think it would be useful for the legislature to hear more about different types of federal funding and how Vermont is accessing that funding, is not accessing that funding, barriers to getting funding. So we will be keeping an ear out for opportunities to provide that perspective. This is also a topic of conversation that's happening within NASCA, the National Association of State Conservation Agencies, wondering about how to get NRCS funding out, particularly for this like flood related work, more equitably among states. So conversation happening on a couple different levels related to federal funding.
I might add too, so we had an interesting situation where some of the smaller towns, they don't have the resources that some of the larger towns do, but we also ran into the issue that when we provide EWP money to those smaller towns, and for smaller projects, maybe less than $500,000, engineering consulting firms don't want anything to do with that because that's small money to them, right? But the bigger projects they do. But if those projects were leveraged at the county or more broad, now you have much larger amount of money that engineering consulting firms might be interested in. So it could be definitely a great opportunity for Vermont potentially.
Yeah, and for conservation districts
Yes,
potentially. Yeah.
absolutely.
And isn't PL 83-566 kind of
Same concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the time. Sorry, Jill, I kind of
No,
ate
I
up some
was
time
gonna
under that
hand off
bullet.
to Linda and Jess to talk about ED recruitment. And I
Okay.
pretty much said, I can say just a little bit more about the transition after they do that.
So who would like to take?
Yeah, I may let Jess speak because she speaks a little more succinctly than I do, but we are in process of trying to find a replacement or someone to take over for Jill. Not going to replace her. We have started interviews. We're still just wrapped up first round. Trying to get some second round interviews scheduled. We're going to have a bit of a break for the holidays, trying to respect both the applicants and people, trying to work on this, our schedules and stuff. We had hoped to be further along in the process during the 1st of January, but we're also not wanting to rush it. We've got the complication that one of our hiring committee members travels to California every winter, and we'll be doing that the second week of January. So we're trying to work on how we, work around that. Whether we ask someone else to step in at that point, or just whether she'll be able to join by Zoom, that kind of stuff. But we have had some good candidates, and we think it's, the process is moving along really well. I'll let Jess add to that. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know that
I'm going to interrupt. Before I do let Jess start, I'm just going to say that Jess has been instrumental in this process. Claire also with HR advice and stuff, but Jess is just a whiz at organizing us and keeping us on task and moving forward, which, it's kind of like herding cats at times, trying to get these Zoom meetings together and stuff. But Jess evidently has worked with cats a lot.
more of a dog person in reality, but I don't mind cats. Yeah, thanks, Linda. I don't know that I have too much more to add. I can say that I think we're pretty much through the first round of interviews. There's some talk of maybe interviewing one more person that that we might end up bringing in, and we're thinking we're going to narrow it down to maybe 3 second interviews, and then hoping to possibly also bring in probably like the first the top 1 or 2 candidates to meet folks in person, organize something like that. So that's sort of our rough plan. We're still aiming to have somebody to make an offer ideally around mid-January, but still depends on a few factors. So yeah, happy to answer any questions about that, but we're still kind of in the thick of it.
Jess and Linda, I don't know if you can speak to, you mentioned bringing people here into the state to meet people in person, and I'm wondering if you can say at this point whether or not, they would be meeting our partners, our staff, our, district managers, who would be included in that sort of last round. I may be jumping the gun on that question, but.
Yeah, I would say we're not super clear about what the process will look like yet, but our hope is to have it be sort of a meet and greet for other board folks who haven't been involved, staff, district managers, partners. But we still need to talk a little bit more about, you know, how close we are on making a decision at that point, and sort of thinking through what's fair to candidates who might be traveling for, you know, quite a distance in order to get here. So we're still kind of thinking through those details, but the hope is to have that be a point where we're pretty close to making a final decision, and we're just sort of looping in more folks to be able to meet this person and share their impressions.
Thank you.
And then in terms of transition, I think I pretty much already shared, Claire, Jess, and I have been having a series of meetings outlining tasks, outlining things that need to be transferred, you know, names on accounts and registrations and all that kind of stuff. And then we're also just sort of exploring the roles and responsibilities question with a view to identifying perhaps additional staffing needs and or redistribution of responsibilities.
Mhm.
I will be here probably pretty close to full time through the end of March. I'm scheduled for cataract surgery, or not scheduled yet, but I'm expecting that in January. So I'll have a little bit of time off there. And then really depending when the start is, I may slow that down and take some leave and then actually work into to part-time in April and May, just to help with the orientation of a new person, depending on when they're able to start.
Yeah, and I think in terms of, you know, additional staffing, I believe that, you know, part of our thought process with that too is as we, you know, as we meet these candidates and get some better sense of who we might be bringing in, and when we make a final decision, then we'll have a better idea of, you know, their qualifications, and that may affect, I think, to some extent, what skill set we're looking for in any additional staffing. That's my sense at least.
Yeah, and I would say, as this relates to council, one, you know, historically, the VACD Executive Director, Jill, has done quite a bit with council in supporting council's operations, grant management, bookkeeping meetings, all of that. And I think one thing to help lighten Jill's load, but also potentially also in thinking about the role of a future VACD Executive Director, I think we're at a point where council can do a little more to sort of stand on its own feet. And so the VACD Executive Director going forward may be taking more of a step back in terms of the level of involvement with organizing council and supporting its operations. As you know, Jill has jumped in throughout the years to do things like manage our design and implementation block grant or trees for streams or any number of things. And so I think we wouldn't put that expectation on an executive director going forward, and just try to make sure that council is staffed appropriately to whatever extent we can to handle that.
But still considered to be an invaluable technical advisor.
Absolutely, absolutely.
From Cabo.
Yeah, passing Cabo. Yeah, and the corollary of that is Claire will be in a stronger leadership role in council. So I want to acknowledge that as well. So we're trying to figure out what can Claire let go of to give her more time to do her council work. And how can we organize it?
But given what you just said about your broad brush timeline, we will have another council meeting before you become less than full-time.
Probably, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, if I'm needed, I'll come, and if I'm not, I won't.
Fair enough. Well, thank you.
Yeah. And Jill, I just want to acknowledge how much you've done for council over the years. I know this will not be your last meeting, but I have learned basically everything from you. And I just want to say, you know, thank you for all the support over the years. And
I also want to say from Franklin County, thanks for saving our butt. Back in the day, we were in rough shape, but we took your advice, we built it up, and now we made you proud.
Look at, you sure do. Yeah, you sure do. Thanks.
I think there are a lot of districts that could say that. Maybe some of them don't know that they should be saying that, but yes, I think that's another part of what Jill has done over the years, is jumped in whenever there was the need.
I can't imagine coming into this partnership without you. Really.
It's been fun. It's been fun. I'm not gonna disappear.
I know.
Yeah.
Just
Just find a different way to contribute.
So we'll table the agenda item on future board meetings to figure that out.
I think this is very quick. I sent out some suggested meeting dates. I will be rolling with that and sending out calendar invites unless I hear some major objections. But the idea is that going forward, we will schedule these routinely in advance. I'm so sorry for the hectic, chaotic scheduling of this meeting. We know that we need to have these at a more scheduled interval. So that's the goal here. And please email me if you have any major objections. Otherwise, we'll be scheduling the next meeting for February. I believe that's, let me pull up the calendar. I'll just announce
So
it
the idea would be to meet quarterly.
quarterly. That is the expectation. It's actually in our core
Every
services.
3 months.
Yeah,
February
yeah,
27th.
February 27th. So
Okay. 27, 25.
I will send out information, but that's all.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Have a great.
Happy holidays, and thank you,
season.
Jill, for your commitment, even in an attempt to retire. She's offering her services if needed, so. Just another testament to her continued leadership, partnership, and just unending support for all of the work that we all do every day. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays to all, and hope you get a break over the next couple weeks.
Yep, happy holidays.
May
Hey,
your
Nina,
holidays,
can I have a word with you?
may your holidays be Zoom free.
What was that, Richard?
I wonder if, you want to call for adjournment first, don't you?
Motion to
Yes.
adjourn?
Second.
So move.
Okay.